Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct privilege and pleasure to welcome you to Practical Farmers of Iowa version of Is the Price Right for Scaling Up? Welcome all to Studio 3B, okay, here in sunny Los Angeles and Iowa, okay? I'd like to introduce the one, the only, Mr. Dan Fillius, our co-host, the real progenitor of this. Field specialist, commercial vegetables, specialty crops. Here he is with his personal Bible. Dan has had many roles that qualified him to share all sorts of vegetable experience here. Former farm manager at Middlebrook Farm in Iowa, Featherstone Farm in Minnesota, and at the Michigan State University Student Organic Farm. And I want you to know tonight that you're going to think that many of these pieces were made by the ISU Theater Department, but I assure you that they were made in Dan's living room with him and his daughters. Yes. So he put a lot of work into this. So wonderful to have you, Dan. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I'd also like to take the opportunity now to introduce our other co-host, Sam Oschwald Tilton. Sam? It is my distinct honor to introduce Sam Oschwald Tilton, Direct Market Vegetable Specialist at UW, and also former vegetable farmer and farm worker and representative for cress cultivation. Oh, excuse me for pressing the back one. And master's degree in horticulture. Excellent. And John, will you please come out? John Hendrickson, special guest, unplanned. John Hendrickson. Yeah. All right, John from UW as well, from the Center for Integrated Ag Systems, original importer of the paper pot planter. If you've used one of those, this is the first person to bring it to the country. Yep, let's hear it.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell, as you can tell, this is not your normal humdrum workshop. Okay, the way this is going to work is with an intense amount of audience participation. And with that, we are going to have a great time, and we are also hopefully going to learn a lot and explore how to think about scaling up and how to think about investments. If you would join me for a moment just in getting our vocal cords engaged. On the count of 3, I would like you to yell out your favorite vegetable, and I would like you to yell it out 3 times in a row on the count of 3. Okay, this is an official poll here. 1, 2, 3.
Kohlrabi.
Okay, I see that the favorite vegetable in Iowa is kohlrabi. A little surprising, but you guys always struck me as a little different. So just to say, as we're going through our game show here, and as contestants are up and guessing, you as the audience are very much encouraged to yell out your answers and your suggestions to them, just as on the game show. So please feel free to help them, and they can feel free to take your advice or not. And at this point, I'd love to turn it over to Mr. Fillius to tell you about the incredible prizes that we have available to you, the audience, should you be able to pass our gauntlet of knowledge.
Thank you, Sam. We have a sweet haul of prizes here. We've got PFI merch. We've got, thank you very much, John White. We have some Sharpies for you. That Bible that Sam was talking about earlier, to manage weeds on your farm. Some other SARE books, a Midwest vegetable guide here. Great copy of Growing for Market, Managing Cover Crops Profitably. So everybody's going to win. You come down here, if you guess right out here and you play the game, you will win this whether you get it right or wrong. And I would be remiss in if I did not mention a new car.
And throughout the day, you may find prizes just coming your way. So keep your eyes open and your ears sharp. And Dan, would you like to tell them how the game will work today?
I would love to.
We're not playing soccer, not running things. We're kicking things.
Here we go. All right. So if you, as a refresher, if it's been a while since you've seen The Price is Right, or if you've never seen it, we are going to call people's names. 4 people will come down here, and we will ask them to bid on an item, to say, like, how much would this thing cost? And they will stand up here, they will write it on here and hold that up for you to see. You are welcome and encouraged to help them figure that out. Think through that. If you know the answer, shout it out. And then they will talk in here because this is going to be recorded for posterity, and only the things that are spoken into mics are recorded for posterity. So once the person who is closest without going over the price or the number will then come up and play a game with us up here. And we'll do this as many times as we can, up to 5, because we have 5 games planned. But I think we may only make it through 3, so we'll see. All right, so without further ado, maybe?
Let's not have any more ado.
All right, no more ado. Come on down. All right, let's see, where's that bucket?
And our first contestant would be...
Maya Black.
Come on down, Maya. Where's Maya? Yes, wonderful to have you. Second contestant would be...
Amber Prochnow. Come on down, Amber. Oh,
Back and
Amber.
break, maybe.
Ashley, I don't know. Is it knees? It's
Nice.
Liz.
Liz, where's next?
And hey, Ashley, last call for Ashley. Oh, sorry, Amber. No, okay. Sally Worley, come on down. You are the next contestant. All right.
You can have this.
For our first qualifying question, weed control. Yeah. So above what depth do 90% of horticultural weeds germinate? And you can do this in, increments of an inch, however you want to do that, however precise you want to be. But above what depth? And you closest without going over here.
Another way to think about this is below what depth would weed seeds not germinate? They would be deep enough where they would not come up. What do you think, audience? Is it 5 feet, 15 feet?
Get out the ideas.
2 feet, 2 inches, 2 feet?
And I just remembered a key part of The Price is Right. How do they avoid ties? They go in order. So we're going to start in order from the first person who is called. Maya, what do you think? 2 inches. All right, Ashley.
Also
But
2.
Ashley, you can't be the same as Maya. Sorry. So are you going to go? Oh, shit.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Give them help.
Yeah, lower or higher? No, that would be shallower. That would be 1.9 inches would be shallower. 2.1 inches would be deeper.
Time to choose, Ashley.
He says 1.
Ashley says 1. 1.
1. Okay, Liz, we've got 2, 1. What do you?
2.3 inches.
2.3.
And final guess here.
1/4 inch.
1/4 inch.
And
The answer is 2 inches.
now, our other
All right.
contestants, if you'd like to stay in the running, just take a seat here in the front row, and you can come up later.
Yeah. Just like on The Price is Right, the 3 people who, they stick around. So, Maya, come on up and play the game with us. We're going to be talking about weed control here. And one way that crop farmers of all sizes control weeds or keep those weeds down. So we're talking about scaling up. And does it really make sense to scale up? Regardless of your size, you can use something like this, a stale seedbed cultivator that cultivates very shallow. We're all familiar with this scene, right? After you till and you let the bed go for a bit. And this implement, if you till very shallow, can lead to a cleaner seedbed and exhaust soils from the surface. Here you can see how deep it's going. That one only went 1.5 inches deep. And we'll talk about that more in a sec. But around stale seed bedding, this idea of working the top layer of the soil, we're going to be playing cliffhanger. We've got a little yodeling guy here. And you have 50 increments. You don't want to let him fall off the mountain. All right? You're going to tell me what percentage, using stale bed practices, as outlined before, what percentage of weeds are killed after one pass? So the bed's been tilled, and then you run a stale bed cultivation setup over that. What What percentage of weeds are killed after one pass?
Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do,
Oh yeah, you
do,
should use the microphone. Yeah. Oh,
do, do.
I'm going to say 70%.
70%. All right. All right. The answer was 42%. And you said 70, is that correct? Yeah. So that's 28 that we're going up here. That, you know, fa the re, fa the ra, fa the re, fa the ra, fa the re, fa the ra. Oh! Here, we'll put them back in right here. Can you hold them there?
So what that means is,
I'm just gonna hang out right here. Could you advance the slides, Stan?
sure can, okay?
All right, now he's not off the mountain yet. 2 passes. What percentage of weeds are killed after 2 passes?
What do you think? First pass was 48.
Cumulatively, yes. What percentage of weeds are killed?
2 passes with the stale seed better.
It's going to be greater than the elastinum.
Dan, last one was 48?
42 was the last
42,
one.
so
It's gonna be
one
greater
pass
than that.
killed 42. What percent of weeds will 2 passes kill?
The question is, if she guesses too low, will it still go up the mountain? And yes, it's numbers higher or lower, yeah. And you're going to win even if he falls off the mountain, Maya. Don't worry about this.
What do you guys think? Okay, we're going to say 65.
65.
What's the answer, Dan?
The answer is 93%. Wow.
2 passes with the stale seed better killing 90,
And your
over
guess is what?
90%.
65. I think he's off the mountain. I can't do that. All right. Oh! Thank you so much, Maya. Yes, we do.
Oh, stay here, stay here.
So I got to play this obligatorily.
But that doesn't reflect your answers at all.
All right, and then a third pass of that, if you were to run it a third time, you would end up with 98% of the weeds exhausted. So the idea being that if you don't till lower, you're not bringing up new weed seeds, and those weeds that are going to come up that year, 1 pass 42%, 2 passes 93, third pass 98. Might be diminishing returns at that point, but you could get quite a lot ahead. So thank you very much, John White. Give our
Let's give our contestant a hand here.
a hand.
Well done.
Yeah,
That's right. Thank you for playing. That's right.
yeah, Maya, yeah, you get all that. We have 5 of those back here. Yeah. All right, so each time we do this, we're going to go beyond the numbers a little bit. And so these slides and this data is courtesy of the University of Kentucky. They did some research on their farm their organic farm. And so again, this is the stale seedbed cultivator. Here it is, all clean and up close with the different components. Starts with sweeps in the front. These rolling cultivators here build the shoulders of the beds back up. These meeker harrows are just flat discs that slice up crumbles. A rolling basket will also break up crumbly stuff. The track sweeps kill weeds in the pathways, and this bed roller keeps it all shallow so that it's not digging in too deep. And here's a picture of it going through the field, the depth again, that horrible weed pressure, it clean, and then the experiment happened in 2017. So they had 4 treatments, they randomized it, they used 40-foot long blocks. Here is a picture of all of them. You can see the real weedy section and the just worked one. Later on in the season, more of it. They measured at the end, they took quadrats and measured the weed biomass. And you can see with just tillage, this is the weight of it. With 1 cultivation, here's the weight, 2 cultivations, this, and here's the percentage. So this is what we talked about, what Maya was guessing right there. So 1 cultivation can kill 40% of the weeds that would come up if you don't re-till that up, that new stuff up. And then 2 cultivations can get you quite far. So this can help a farmer at any scale again. There are other ways of doing it besides just that implement. That was a custom one. Some people use silage tarps, and that is a way of doing that one stale bedding paths. Here's a video of a basket weeder on a belly mount of a cultivating tractor, followed by tine weeders behind. This one it's harder to keep this one that precise 2-inch depth, but it is doing the work of tilling up that weed pressure. Another way of doing it is flame weeding. This one you can see there's some sweeps underneath on the belly that are getting the tracks also. It's kind of wet there for the tillage, but this does not have to be tractor mounted, of course. Flame weeding that's hand powered also does this job, but does not do good at killing grasses. If you want to read more about it, we have a link to this document in the handout that you can pick up on your way out. Where is this guy? New Zealand?
New Zealand. Murph is in New Zealand.
Yeah, Murph is in New Zealand. So there's a whole thing about the concept of stale seed bedding and the ways you can do it. All right. So thank you very much for listening to that. Let's play our next game. We need to get one more person down here. So,
assuming our 3 contestants would like to come back here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I am turning away from the mic when I face the screen that way, so I'm going to put my mic on the other lapel.
Oh, yeah, no.
Say again?
I said,
Yes. All right.
who do we have,
Who do
Jeff?
we have? Da, 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 da.
This is completely randomized.
Drew Erickson, come on down. That's it. Let's invite all of our folks back up here. Set change here.
And do I take the lead spot?
Yes, I think so. But we start with the next person. You'll be the last. No, Liz is going to bid first. Oh, she was. Okay, back to your. Thank you very much for playing fair there. You betcha. All right. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a harvesting round. Lettuce harvesting in particular. You'll notice that all the questions in this round will pertain to lettuce harvests of one sort or another, or lettuce harvesters of one sort or another. The question at hand is, when does it make sense, at what scale, to change the lettuce harvesting tool that you're using? Right, so for example, we might start with a knife to start harvesting 5 pounds of lettuce a week. But as we start getting to 50, 100, 500, 1,000 pounds of lettuce mix or other greens in total during the season, it may not make sense to cut with a knife anymore. And the question we're asking ourselves is, how do we think about when it's time to invest in another tool, especially knowing that these tools can cost hundreds, thousands of dollars for these harvesting tools? What are we thinking about to know when it might be time to invest in those? And with that, I welcome you to our qualifying question, which is, how many pounds of lettuce mix can an experienced employee harvest by hand in 1 hour? Liz has a question.
Are we harvesting direct-seeded?
Wonderful question. The answer to that would be that we are harvesting direct-seeded lettuce mix, loose leaf lettuce
Not
mix.
Salanova.
Harvesting with any tool of choice?
Sure, it being a knife or scissors. Exactly. So once again, the question, how many pounds of direct-seeded lettuce mix can an experienced employee harvest by hand in 1 hour? And audience, do feel free to lend your collective wisdom. Dan, could we get some Jeopardy music humming, please?
Ashley, do you have your answer? All right. 80? 8 pounds. All right.
Okay,
8 pounds.
8 pounds. Feel free, audience, to yell any other more correct answers out, but okay. Other contestants. Okay, Liz says 19.
Yep, show them.
Liz says 19.
72.
72 pounds. 72 pounds. And Drew here waited till the end to get all the wisdom. 20.
20 pounds.
Ladies and gentlemen, from an incredibly scientific survey that I did with one very experienced farmer, the only correct answer of how many pounds of direct-seeded lettuce mix an experienced employee can harvest by hand in 1 hour would have to be 25 pounds, which means Mr. Drew, please come on down. And the rest of you wonderful people, please feel free to stay in the front row for later rounds. Yeah, you need to be more excited. There we go. You can feel free to jump up and down, etc. Hey, random prize. Okay, Mr. Dan, if you could advance our slide, one slide, please. So here we have two options that you might consider as you scale up your harvesting. Okay, on the left here is the Farmer's Friend brand quick cut greens harvester. You can see that it's powered by a little cordless drill there. There's a blade at the bottom, and these ropes will kind of sweep the loose leaf lettuce into the hopper. Okay, this retails for approximately $460, I believe. And here on the right, you see the Johnny's Greens harvester. You see that this is wider. It can cut an entire 30-inch bed at one go. I believe it is battery powered, and this retails, I believe, for $4,500 approximately. Okay, so on the one hand, we have a knife, retail for 50 cents at Goodwill. Farmer's Friend Quick Cut Greens at about $450, and the Johnny's Greens harvester at $4,500. And this is the subject of this conversation. Mr. Dan Fillius, thank you. Our first question, on average, how many pounds of Salanova head lettuce can be harvested in 1 hour, cutting by hand? And clearly, this is a tough question, so let me tell you how this game works, okay? For each question I'm gonna ask you, the answer's right here, Drew, it's right here. The only problem is, of the 3 numbers, you need to pick the right 2 numbers, and you need to put them in the right order, okay? Now, you have 10 chances to get the answer to all, whoa, I'm sure you want the audience feedback on this one. Okay, you have 10 chances to get the correct answers to 3 upcoming questions. Okay, and here is the first question. How many pounds of Salanova can be harvested in 1 hour? And feel free, audience, to give any feedback. 60. He's taking it. He's taking it. 60 pounds, and that would be absolutely correct. Well done, sir. Well done. Okay, Salanova head lettuce. Mr. Dan, if you would advance us one, please.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. John.
Thank you. And Jana, if you could move the signs down. Thank you. Second question, Drew, and so far your record is 100%. Let's hope that continues. But I can see you sweating there. Just take some deep breaths. Okay.
I know my people in the audience here.
Okay. Question number 2. On average, how many pounds of loose greens can be harvested in an hour with the quick cut greens harvester? How many pounds can be harvested in an hour with the quick cut greens harvester?
3.
Yeah, and we'll leave you right there. And you may pick.
Oh, yeah, I was wrong.
You may pick.
Yeah, sorry, that was my mistake.
You may pick any
My bad.
3 of those
My bad.
numbers. That was aspirational. And here we have Drew's choice as 137. And ladies and gentlemen, absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. So he moves down and gets another chance. It's not 137. What is it? How many pounds with the quick cut? 1 pound.
But you have to 3 numbers. Has to be
And Mr. Drew, is that your final answer? Fantastic. Fantastic. And our last greens question here, and you are on track to knock this out of the park. Okay. If you would advance this one slide, please, Mr. Fillius. Thank you. Our last question. On average, how many pounds of greens can be harvested in 1 hour with the Johnny's Greens harvester?
590? 590?
Well, it costs a pretty penny. It better do something. And Mr. Drew is writing down the answer of 590. Dan, what sound effect should you get? Tough. He's got some chances here. Moment of truth.
What is that? I can't read it.
He guessed 350 pounds. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he's got it. Drew, if you would please see Mrs. Donna right for your prize. Thank you. Now, you can imagine that this can't all be fun and games, so allow me to lecture you for a moment, okay? The question that we're asking here is, what do we think about in terms of investing in these tools, right? When does this make sense? And there's maybe two different ways to think about it. One is the banker's way, and the other might be, the farmer's way. And let me show you what I mean, okay? This is more the banker's way, and neither is right or wrong. They're just different ways of approaching it. So for example, I've got my laser pointer here. So here's a table we put together to understand the numbers behind this. So for example, we could think about the quick cut greens harvester. Sells for about $735. I'm sorry for giving you the wrong number earlier. I don't know if I'll get hired back here next year. The depreciation we might think of for this tool is 7 years, meaning that its useful life we'll think of as 7 years, okay? And the pounds that it can harvest per hour is about 175, okay? So if it's going to last 7 years, here we're saying that total cost, it'll be depreciated, and a little more than that, over 7 years, okay? So about $105 will be depreciated per year, okay? And here we have annual maintenance and storage. For all these tools, there's going to be maintenance throughout the year, whether that's oil, whether that's new blades, et cetera. And it also needs to be stored somewhere. We need to have it pay its way in terms of that pole shed or wherever it's being stored. So here is just an estimate, but some type of accounting that we would need to be thinking about that, okay? And then we can think about the pounds harvested. So here's where we're thinking, at what scale does this tool start to make sense? Clearly at 5 pounds of lettuce, it doesn't make sense, right? So here's different pounds of lettuce, starting at 100 pounds harvested, all the way up to, at the bottom, 102,000 pounds. Okay, I eat a lot of lettuce, so. And here we have the harvest rate of pounds per hour. So knowing that, our machine will harvest 175 pounds per hour. At these different weights of lettuce, how long will it take to pick that? So we can see that with picking 100 pounds would take about a half an hour with this tool, and picking, say, 3,200 pounds would take about 18 hours. And again, you can see how we're fitting numbers to things that can never be, actually known, right? This isn't like adding up pennies and nickels, but we're doing the best we can, okay? And then we think about the labor cost per hour. If we assume that we're spending $15 an hour in labor, we can see that for each amount of lettuce harvested, this is the amount of money that would need to be paid for someone to use that tool and harvest, okay? And then we've got the total cost, which would be the labor needed, plus the annual storage, plus the annual depreciation, okay? We could also use those numbers to figure out the total per unit cost. And that means for 100 pounds of lettuce with this tool, paying someone $15 an hour, it costs us about $1.34 per pound to harvest that lettuce. And we can see that as we harvest more and more pounds, the total cost per pound of harvest goes down, right? Because we're gaining that efficiency. And then we can think about the per unit saving comparison. If we compare this to a knife, and the fact that a knife harvests, 25 pounds per hour, we can see how this tool pays off. So if we're only harvesting 100 to 200 pounds of lettuce, we might as well use a knife, right? We're losing money in investing in this expensive tool. But again, the more product that we harvest, the sooner this tool is going to pay for itself, and the lower the cost per unit. And we can see that our annual savings go up, right? Here, just if we're harvesting 400 pounds, according to this math, we'd only be saving about $100 per year with this tool. But again, as we harvest more and more and scale up, we're saving more and more money by investing in this tool, okay? And then we can think, how long will this tool take to pay for itself? If we're only harvesting 400 pounds of lettuce per year, it's going to take a while to pay for itself. In fact, after its depreciated life. However, the more product that we're harvesting, the quicker it will pay for itself. Okay. So let's look at another mathematical way to compare these two. Here's the quick cut greens harvester compared to the Johnny's harvester right here, okay? And let's just look at one thing here. Here's the years till payback. And here, between 800 pounds and 1,600 pounds, we see that it will pay back either in 2.5 years or 1 year. Now let's compare that to the Johnny's harvester. Where does that pay back for itself? Here, look, we'd have to be harvesting 25,000 pounds or 51,000 pounds for it to pay back in 1.5 years or half a year. So again, comparing how much work can that machine do, 350 pounds per hour versus 175, and how much does it cost, and where does that balance out? Okay, and this is the last slide of math, okay, but again, this is the mathematical way to look at this, trying to take as many variables into account as we can. Here's a wonderful graph. Thank you to Jonna Hendrickson for putting this together. And you can see in blue is the knife, in orange is the quick cut harvester, and in gray is the Johnny's harvester. And what we did with labor at $15 an hour, we just circled where the cost starts to turn into cost savings for each tool. So for example, you can see here at 200 pounds past that, the quick cut harvester makes more sense than the knife. And you can see here at approximately 12,000 pounds, the Johnny's harvester makes more sense than the quick cut. Now realize the weakness here is we're only talking about numbers. We're not talking about sore backs. You know what I mean? So there's a whole other side to this that we'll talk about in a moment. And another thing to think about is your cost of labor, all of these variables. If you are paying a lot more per hour, say $25 an hour, look, all of a sudden the quick cut pays for itself sooner because you're saving more labor. And all of a sudden the Johnny's harvester pays for itself sooner. This is just like maybe in Europe where the cost of labor is much higher than here. The vegetable machinery that they use there is much more expensive. Why? Because labor is more expensive, so machinery pays for itself faster. Okay, so that was math. Let's take a moment and be real people, shall we? So I talked to 3 different growers. This would be a rock star grower from here in Iowa. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Jordan Scheibel, there he is. Okay. And Jordan was nice enough to give me his thoughts on skill. And he said, it hasn't really been about the numbers for past tool purchases. For example, I invested in a Planet Junior walk-behind tractor and a paper pot transplanter. I had no idea what the return on investment for those was. I just knew that in the case of weeding, we were not getting effective weed control with hand hoeing, and we were losing yield. So the Planet Junior gives me real weed control so I can harvest crops, and that is a must-have. And here are Jordan's employees here. I think he pays them about $3 an hour. Okay? And he went on to say, or with the paper pot transplanter, that's about effort. Some people can hand transplant just as fast as the transplanter can, but to do that, you have to hustle. Whereas I can use the paper pot transplanter for 8 hours, I cannot hand transplant at a hustling pace for 8 hours. And I definitely can't do that for 20 years. So even if the paper pot transplanter didn't save time, it still saved effort. It's about the quality of life on that one. I do think it's a deficit that I have not been looking at the numbers, so I need to keep records so I can make comparisons. And as I'm working to get systems in place on my farm, I want to start tracking those numbers to make it clear to me when, where, and how to invest. Thank you for that, Jordan. We turn to another grower. Here's Kat Becker up in my neck of the woods in Wisconsin. Kat said, we don't keep comprehensive records, but we are really good at benchmarking the speed of specific tasks. We like the Cost to Grow program from Oregon State, which is in the resources paper handed out somewhere. This is a method of doing time studies, which are snapshots. We sample an activity 3 times during the season, like bed prep or harvesting cherry tomatoes. Then we use that data to understand labor or where we can best put an investment. Take carrots as an example. If 2/3 of your time is spent washing, investing in a carrot harvester is not the best investment. The goal of this targeted data gathering is to identify parts of the systems that are sucking time. And Kat went on to say, I think the greens harvester is stupid for our farm. It is not ergonomic and only well-trained employees can use it. I think it works well for people doing full beds of dense baby greens. It works in the right system. If the problem you want to solve is that it takes too long to harvest greens, one solution is a new harvester, but another solution is to change the system and grow Salanova, which for hand harvest is faster and easier. And that's what Kat did, she grows Salanova. If a tool costs less than $3,000 and seems like it will make our life easier, I'm likely to buy a few just to try them out. Also, a sort of hidden consideration is your tax bracket. If I need to keep my income low for my health insurance or other reasons, then I may need to buy something sooner than is needed on the farm. Good point, Kat. And here we have our last non-mathematical perspective from Tim Huth, Southern Wisconsin. Tim said, the biggest thing that I track is time. That's my most important commodity, especially if it feels like it's not time well spent. What can I do to save my time for important things and so that I'm enjoying my time? An example where the payoff was obvious. We are using a time clock for employees to punch in and out. Right away, it lightened my load. Because with it, I don't have to dispute hours or worry about rounding up or down or taking account for lunch. I just download hours onto the computer. I don't know if it saved me time over the old paper timesheets, but the stress and annoyance it saves made it pay for itself in a non-quantifiable way. It makes my time feel better spent. And Tim went on to say, an investment that has been hard to quantify in any way is our rotary spader. We got it new, and it cost enough that we took out a loan for it. I wanted it to solve the problem of rototilling because I was seeing bad effects on our soil. But how can I quantify an improvement in my soil? After many years, I can see that the spaded areas have many more earthworm holes in the spring. Awesome. But that took several years, and it's not like it makes my soil more valuable on paper. Boo, someday the IRS will get a hold of that. No one will pay me more per acre for my land because it has more earthworms. It's hard to see the payoff over that longer time frame. Whereas if I bought a Scott Viner carrot harvester, I could watch it fill a semi with carrots, and that return is obvious and can be counted. So that's our exploration of different things to consider when scaling up, both a mathematical perspective, very important, but also a sort of less quantifiable and how much does your back hurt perspective as well. And it's time for another game. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got our 3 contestants. Come back up. Come on back. It might be around this round. And Dan, who's coming next?
Kelsey J.
Kelsey in house.
All right.
Woo! Touchdown. Wonderful. There we go. Kelsey, thank you for joining us. And you've got your whiteboard right there. Feel free to get through some of that.
I think this next one's mine, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, everybody. Next one here, we're going to talk financial benchmarking. So I took a survey. Maybe you participated in this. Thank you very much if you did. I asked growers in Iowa, vegetable growers, what is the average starting hourly wage on Iowa vegetable farms for workers age 18 up with no experience? Liz, we'll start with you this time. What is the average starting hourly wage on Iowa vegetable farms? What? Help her out, help her out. The average. I heard. Go with your gut. Go with your gut. But you got 5 seconds. No, you got to be closest without going over. So 3 is not maybe bad. All right, speak it into the mic.
925.
All right, Sally, what do you say?
825.
All right, Kelsey?
926.
All right.
Nice.
Actually, 725. Okay.
Dan?
And the answer is $11.54 is the average starting wage for employees over 18 with no experience. Sign up. Thank you very much.
Kelsey at 926, I think, squeaked
Yeah,
in.
Kelsey, you are our winner. Congratulations. All right, so 11 Iowa farmers responded. This is how we got to this number. Some of you were like, this doesn't square with my experience, but 11 farmers responded. The average starting wage for high school workers was $9.35. But remember, before it was 18 and up. The average starting wage for people who had 2 years of experience before they came to that farm was $14.39. For managers, if they are taking on significant responsibility and are more self-directed, $17.62. And most people reported back that they offered a quick increase of $1 an hour after demonstrated proficiency. So they'd hire somebody at a lower rate, that starting rate, and then if after a week of good work and demonstrated proficiency, they'd bump that up $1. And most were also offering perks such as free produce and eggs and other things like that. And some even offered housing, but this was mostly for like managers. And some who were more remote from big cities were offering gas money to get to the farm. And I see your hand in the back. However, we're only going to take questions at the end just because we're short on time, but I will remember to look for you. All right. And another perspective is some people are finding it hard to find workers. And so one option that some are turning to is the H-2A visa program for bringing non-domestic workers. And the federal government sets the minimum wage for that. And that this year has gone up to $17.54. However, it also includes you have to house the workers. That's on top of that cost. Also guarantee payment for 3/4 of the promised hours. So you bring them from, say, April to October, you have to guarantee 3/4 of that time in payment. And have to provide transportation to and from work and shopping for essentials. And another testimonial, Liz, our contestant here, Liz Graysnack, Happy Hollow Farm. She's hired H-2A workers from Mexico the past couple of seasons. It's been very good for her and her farm, she says. Some pros she noted were greater staff retention and better ability to delegate, more significantly increased sales with less workers, and her workers have been more invested in the farm. Some cons, yeah, she had to be committed to learning Spanish, and payroll is expensive. $17.54 is a higher rate, right? But there's also, so not just pros and cons, there's same. Human nature. Workers are workers, people are people. Interpersonal conflicts can still exist. All right, so beyond the, we'll step into the numbers now, and this is a game we call Make the Ratios, and this is going to be Sam and John on this one. So Sam, here you go. Here's the clicker.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you for that. Here we go. This game is Make the Ratios, okay? Now, ratios or records or benchmarks can be very effective on a farm to take a snapshot and understand what is going on and make business decisions for the future. Dan, could you quiet it down?
I'm sorry. You got 10 minutes, Sam. That's
Hot mic. Okay. So we're going to ask you, Kelsey, to make the ratios. So using all of these bits of information here on the table, which audience are also reflected up here, we're going to ask you for question 1. In your opinion, according to the Pennsylvania 2021 study, for farms between 3 and 12 acres in size, what is the average net income per acre on farms between 3 and 12 acres? And take your time. And you can see Jonna there pointing to the numbers. I would think so. Some dollar amount. Feel free to yell out, audience, and you can see the net income per acre. Yes, per acre per year.
Per acre per year.
No. Yeah, unfortunately. I don't think I. Yeah, why don't you switch one there? I think that perhaps 2,000 would be more appropriate. Yeah, the only reason is it's per acre. So that's each acre is netting approximately 2,800. Okay, now I have to walk over to my answers here because unfortunately I haven't memorized them. But once I get professional at this, I'm sure I will. Okay. And here's question number 2. What is one way to measure profitability on your farm using a ratio? And feel free here, Kelsey, if you want to choose 2, you can put one, above the line and one below, and so that would be your ratio. What's one way to measure profitability on your farm using a ratio?
Help her out. Shout it out.
It's choosing net revenue over base, and we are giving a round of applause. Wonderful. That is a way to measure profitability on your farm. Question 3. What is the average payroll to gross revenue ratio on vegetable farms between 3 and 12 acres, according to PASA? And you can see there that we're going to look for a percentage. Payroll to gross. What percentage of gross revenue is spent on payroll? Audience is saying yes, and that is correct. 26% payroll to gross ratio. Okay, we are halfway through. I can see Kelsey sweating up a storm, but we're almost there. Okay, Here we go. What is the average net income on vegetable farms between 3 and 12 acres? And audience is clapping. That would be correct. Almost out of the woods. What ratio can tell you how effectively you are using your equipment to generate revenue? What ratio can tell you how effectively you are using your equipment or assets to generate revenue? Audience sounds a little confused. No. There we go. So acres would be assets to land, but we were talking assets to revenue. So perhaps gross revenue would be more appropriate. See, that's totally right, ladies and gentlemen. Now, realize that you've been left with some dummy answers there because we clearly couldn't make this too easy. So the last question is, an FTE is a full-time equivalent, meaning the equivalent of one person working full-time 40 hours a week. And the question is, what is the average number of FTEs, meaning people working full-time, what is the average number of FTEs per acre on vegetable farms between 3 and 12 acres? How many full-time workers per acre? Ladies and gentlemen, that is absolutely correct. And Jonna, what has been won here by a contestant? Looks like a lifetime supply of CFI t-shirts and
It should be noted that tractor comes from John Hendrickson's personal collection.
this time we'd like to turn it over to our resident benchmarking expert who is so kind to join us, John Hendrickson.
John, you have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. All right. What am I going to say in 4 minutes? Well, so one of the things I do at the University of Wisconsin is engage in benchmark building. We are at which is the advance here?
By your ring finger. That one. Yep.
Okay, here we go. So where can we get benchmarks? Well, the reality is that if you're a conventional farmer, they really exist out there. How much corn can yield per acre, or how much does it cost to produce 100 weight of milk if you're a dairy farm? And the source for that is University of Minnesota Center for Farm Financial Management. What about all us vegetable farmers? Where can we go to for benchmarks? Well, I did a study way back when, in 2002 to 2004, where I collected some data. One of those numbers was referenced in the quiz. The 0.4 people FTE per acre was from that study. More recently, we've got this PASA study, which asks the question, can vegetable farmers earn a middle-class living in Pennsylvania? And they found that most farmers were below a living, the median household income in Pennsylvania, unfortunately. But ideally, benchmarks come from you. Without data from working vegetable farms, we can't create these benchmarks. And without benchmarks, we don't really have guideposts in terms of where we're going in terms of finances. So, if you ever get a survey from me or from Dan, fill it out, because these are useful tools for us. So they can help us set realistic goals and compare our farm's performance with others. One of the goals of that study that I did way back in the early 2000s was to bring a group of farmers together, collect data, and share it in a way that we could learn from one another to improve our farms. A couple quick anecdotes from that study is that there was a farm in the study that compared itself to the other farms at a similar scale, and they realized that they had way less assets. They hadn't invested in equipment and tools on their farm. And they looked at the other farms around them and they thought, we're doing all this backbreaking labor. Let's try to make our farm more efficient and profitable by investing in some equipment. Another farm, kind of exactly the opposite. They hadn't hired labor, really, and they were doing all the work themselves and were really run down. And so they used that benchmark to actually go to their CSA membership to justify an increase in their share price so they could hire employees and improve their quality of life. It was really satisfying result of the project. Now, the result of the goal of benchmarking is not so that we can all like hit this target and all become like an average farm. It's okay to be an outlier. There could be good reasons for you to be an outlier in terms of benchmarks. Benchmarks do require record keeping. None of us get into farming because we like record keeping, right? We get into farming because we like to work outside and we love plants and we love animals. And I think one of the big problems with record keeping is that for the most part, we do record keeping to satisfy other people. We've got to fill out our taxes. We've got to satisfy our organic certifier. We've got to satisfy our food safety inspectors. Like, I guess you don't inspect.
I'm not an inspector.
We've got to do all this stuff for other people. And I think we need to make sure that we both keep and use records that we use on our farm to make our farms better. So purpose-driven record keeping, useful benchmarks to track. How many of us keep really good harvest records? Or do we really only keep track of what we sell? So do we really know what a good yield is per 100-foot bed or per acre of carrots? I don't know. Sales on a per acre or square foot basis. That net to gross ratio that we talked about, which from the Pennsylvania study wasn't that great. You can gross a lot per acre growing vegetables, but the net is what really matters, right? And so having a good positive net to gross is really important. Assets to gross. We talked about that being a measure of how well you use the things that you buy to help you do the work. How well does that help you generate revenue? I've asked farmers to tally up the value of their assets, and for a number of farms, it's actually equaled or more or less equaled their gross sales. And I'm curious if that pattern would continue. So if anybody wants to tally up all their assets that they have and compare it to their gross and let me know, I'd be really curious. Payroll to gross, really common for farms. Actually, the 26 that was from the PASA study, that's, there are smaller farms in that study that maybe are doing a lot of the work themselves. A lot of farms are between 30 and 40. And FTE per acre, about a half a person is pretty standard. I think it's really good to monitor task rates on your farm. That can help with setting benchmarks for your employees. So benchmarks aren't necessarily about comparing you to other farms, but can be internal as well within your farm to increase efficiency. And we better stop. Leave time for questions.
Yeah, we have exactly 3 minutes for questions. So thank you very much, John. Thank you all. Oh man, I gotta admit, we were pretty nervous before we did this, but now it feels pretty good to be done. But there was a question that somebody had in the back. I don't know if they're still here. Oh, she left. Okay. Anybody else have a question? Yeah, Laura. Your benchmark, you're saying, is how many more CSA members you'd have to hire in order to hire another worker?
If I hire another worker, how many CSA shares is it going to take to pay for it? And can that person at least generate that much more work for me? And if they can do more than that, then it's worth hiring them.
Awesome. Thanks,
I
Laura.
think.
That's your personal
my
benchmark.
benchmark, yeah.
Nice. Any other questions out here or things
There's
you'd like to
questions,
share?
comments about anything we talked about, or wish we would have talked about. Yeah. Can I just come over to you? You can.
So you mentioned the assets to, what was it, the assets to gross revenue? Do you mean on an annual basis, people, their depreciation is equal?
No, the idea is to give a value to your assets. The best way to think about it is if you were going to have a farm auction, or if you're going to sell all the stuff that you have, your BCS, your hoop house, et cetera, what would it bring in? And so that's the comparison, not what you paid for it, or not the depreciated amount.
And then the gross that you're comparing it to is your annual gross.
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Jordan?
I'm just wondering with the FTE per acre, that's FTE of hired labor or FTE of total labor, which would include the farm owners?
And I was wondering the same, Jordan, because if a farmer is working 80 hours a week, is that 2 FTEs?
I'm thinking it's
Yeah.
just higher.
Do you know, John?
Yeah, I believe that was hired workers that number was based off of, Jordan.
And just to say that PASA study that came from is awesome, just in terms of seeing benchmarks. That's on the research page, or just Google like PASA benchmarking study, and you can go straight to the
And I
source.
believe those pages are up by the exits when you are leaving to pick up those resources. We have 10 seconds left. Last questions, comments? Oh, right here up in the front, Ashley.
We operate a CSA farm and we do wholesale and we have farmers market. And we're trying to decide how to delineate, understand how we can grow our farm and not cannibalize our own sales. So I'm curious if you can direct me to a resource to help us differentiate the opportunity of limiting our CSA, expanding our acreage, going more wholesale, that sort of, I know it's not like an answer, but just a resource.
Do you have?
It's, I mean, I feel like it's a big internal conversation that you would have to have with yourself or your partner about what's working best on your farm. One possible resource is to use something called Veggie Compass, which I created a long time ago, which is a spreadsheet tool that analyzes profitability by crop and by market. And that might help you answer whether the CSA or the farmer's market or channel that you're doing, which of those is really profitable for you.
Available for free online, Veggie Compass.
Yeah. All right. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming.